brought you to it. Where are you? Where are we? And so you can comment and tell them what we're doing in Maryland. And then I'll open it up to you guys. But I want to bring Delegate.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Button on the bottom. Try this one.
This one works really good.
Well, right?
Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I don't dispute that citizen engagement is really, really critical to our ability to be successful in our goals to protect ourselves and this wonderful state of Maryland, where I will take a little bit of a U-turn or a detour, is that Maryland's experience is very different from Pennsylvania's. And in part, it's because of the forward thinking and activism of people in this room. I want to thank Clean Water Action, the Maryland Sierra Club, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We have a treasure trove of organizations that have collaborated with us, with a range of advocates in Western Maryland. This started to crop up as a concern from landowners and environmental activists in Western Maryland. We have a very small piece of the Marcellus Shale, but as everyone saw in the course of this movie, and even with the experience of our friends in Pennsylvania, we're all connected. And it doesn't matter how much of the shale we have, the decisions we make in Maryland, we're going to be impacted by the decisions of our neighbors to the north. But we do have a very important role to play in making decisions on how we will do this in Maryland. And one of the things that we all collaborated to send a very strong message here in Maryland is that we weren't going to have mistakes. We didn't want to regret the approach that we took. Second chances are expensive, and we didn't want to have them. We wanted to learn from the states that had jumped in and done this unregulated, with no questions asked, with the industry running rampant, with its representatives and lobbyists having their way, with the agencies and the regulatory bodies. And we said no in Maryland. Our agencies, which are the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Department of Natural Resources, are the twin agencies that oversee this process in Maryland. And the two secretaries there actually are very, very good. They are very committed to making sure that we do this in the right way. And they collaborated with me and other bill supporters to put forward a very strong bill this last legislative session that said, no drilling in Maryland. We have yet to issue any permits, and they had no intention of doing it. But we also wanted to have a bill passed so that we could have money come in from the industry to pay for the costly studies that we wanted to do to determine whether we should do this at all, and if we are to do it, is there a way to do it safely so that we don't have regrets? And so we put together a bill that said, no drilling whatsoever for 2 years. During this 2-year period of the moratorium, we'll do a very sophisticated study looking at a range of issues, many of the issues pointed out in the movie: transportation and infrastructure impact, baseline water quality assessments, what do we do with the fracking fluid, disclosures of chemicals, a whole body of evidence that we wanted to collect. Some of it being done in reports by neighboring states and jurisdictions, some of it being collected at the federal level, some of it possibly not being done at all. We wanted to dig deeper and probe further than whatever had been done up to this point. And we wanted to charge the industry $10 per leased acre to pay for this study. The bill passed the House of Delegates overwhelmingly, and as Andy mentioned, in the 11th hour of our 90-day session, it got held up in the Senate. Now, many of you here, I think, are from the Baltimore area. I would tell you that additional advocacy would be helpful because a very key member of the Senate is from Baltimore. Senator Joan Carter Conway is the chair of the Environmental Health and Education Affairs Committee, and that's the committee that this bill ended up getting stuck in. It was stuck not because she was keeping it from moving, but we ran out of time, and we want to keep her engaged. And so if you are looking for a place to go with your advocacy, encouraging her to continue to have an approach about go slow, do it right, would be very helpful. And on the other side, a big giant in this debate, also from Baltimore on the House side, is the chair of the Environmental Matters Committee, Delegate Maggie McIntosh. She was incredibly supportive in working with me and my colleagues to make sure that the House passed a very strong bill. As mentioned, that House legislation was the baseline for the governor's moratorium. When we weren't able to get the bill passed, Governor O'Malley and the secretaries of those two agencies came together to say, we're going to do this anyway. We're going to set a very strong example in Maryland. We're not going to drill until we have answers to these questions. And so there's a commission that has been put together, and we have a 3-year study that we have just begun to dig into. There have been 14 members to the commission that have been appointed. I'm one of those commissioners. And during the course of the question and answer, if you're interested, I can tell you a little bit of the direction that I think that we might be headed, though we've only had one meeting under our belts so far. But in Maryland, no permits have been granted. There were 5 pending, and that's one of the reasons why we were pushing our legislative approach. There have been no permits issued in Maryland. There will be no drilling in Maryland until we have these answers. And I think that what we want to do is to continue to show Maryland as an innovator, as a forward-thinking state that stops and does the right thing instead of having regrets later.
Look at that one.